Marjorie's here.
Recording in progress.
Oh, wonderful. Hi, Marjorie.
Oh, wonderful. Hi, Marjorie.
Denise, I see you were able to join us.
Denise, I see you were able to join us. Yes.
Rhonda, you seem to have an echo. Rhonda, you seem to have an echo.
Uh-huh. How do I solve that?
Not sure.
It started with the recording, so.
Yes, it did.
So you could go through your speakers and test each one to see which is the problem.
Are we
You
up?
say that with all of the insurance that we would have a clue how to do that.
Sorry, I taught high school during the pandemic. Oh, you just check your speakers.
Are we echoing now or are we good?
I think you're good.
Okay.
And I think we do still have people joining, but I think we're going to go ahead and get started.
Yeah, well, thank you everyone. It's so great to see everybody here. And as you're aware, inflation has really taken a tremendous toll on families in Washtenaw County, especially the lowest income families that we serve. Today, I'm going to share with you some of the needs that we are seeing at this time. I'll share the actions that SOS has been taking with your support to provide more help and security to those in need. Next slide. There we go. Soon we're going to be celebrating Labor Day. It seems unbelievable that we're at the end of the summer already. But this Labor Day, I want to acknowledge the hard work of the parents who are in the SOS programs. They are so determined to make better lives for themselves and their children. They have to work hard to overcome obstacles and make a lot of sacrifices. But this quote from Martin Luther King reminds me of the dignity in their efforts and their resilience, like so many workers all over our country. And certainly all labor does uplift humanity. That uplifts humanity has dignity. So during the pandemic, there was a moratorium on evicting families to non-payment of rent. That moratorium ended 14 months ago. Evictions since that time have increased dramatically in our county every month since then. At the same time, pandemic-related financial assistance for low-income families has ended. You know, SOS distributed more than $15 million to families to help them catch up on back rent accrued during the pandemic. These funds are now exhausted. In addition, the SNAP program benefits were reduced to pre-pandemic levels in March of 2023, even though grocery costs continue to cost much more than pre-pandemic. Add to that the increase in the cost of renting and the inflation effects on gas and food prices we have all experienced over the last year, and we have a perfect storm right now. As most of you know, low-cost housing availability has decreased even further as the housing market has heated up again, and many units designated as affordable are now aging out of their affordability and moving to fair market rental rates. For our families who have moved into their own homes and are paying their own rent, any price increases can push them toward the risk of homelessness. Excuse me. I think we're on the next slide. As
Rhonda,
you may know, yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I think that the echo, if everybody can mute themselves, I think that might solve the problem.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Barbara, I think we need to go back to the last slide.
Okay.
As you may know, local family homelessness surged last winter. Washtenaw County placed 100 homeless families in hotels during the winter months to try to help. Today, about 30 of those families are still in hotels awaiting housing options. Looking ahead, we expect another very difficult winter for Washtenaw County. More than 100 families are currently on the shelter wait list. These families are living outside or in places not meant for human habitation. Before the pandemic, the shelter wait list would average about 25 to 35 families. So we have never seen a shelter wait list as long as we have now. And we expect the shelter wait list to continue to grow in the months ahead.
Violet, that's like almost like the same thing.
Our food pantry serves.
It's bullish because you've got price action leading into it. That is bullish, right? So that's bullish consolidation. But again,
Rhonda, is there a way that you can mute everybody?
It's consolidating because, as we know,
And Rhonda, you're muted right now as well.
We're just having some difficulties with audio right now. And
Yeah.
now we have an echo. Okay, are we good now? I think somebody achieved that. So I don't know how much of that you heard. So our food pantry serves more than 275 households a week now. Before the pandemic, we served about 125 a week. Many people are using a food pantry for the very first times in their lives. And Barbara, we can move on. In this picture, volunteers are sorting the weekly donation of food from food gatherers to get ready for the weekly food distribution. SOS distributes food on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Every household receives several bags of groceries, including meat, dairy, bread, and produce. Each family receives enough food to feed each family member at least 3 meals. You know, more people are facing hunger and food security now than ever. During a recent week in July, SOS's pantry served 279 households. This is a much higher number of food requests than we have ever seen. Before the pandemic, SOS served about 125 households every week. The spike in need for free groceries has been caused by inflation in grocery stores. Also, the federal government returned SNAP benefits, commonly called food stamps, back to their pre-pandemic levels in March of 2023. Many people who visit SOS's food pantry are turning to a pantry for help for the first time, as we just noted previously. SOS relies heavily on volunteer support to keep our pantry running. We are always in need of more volunteers. So if you can help, please visit our website to learn more about our volunteer opportunities. SOS also provides children's services. We have long offered research-based programming to children and parents because we know that children are the least visible and most vulnerable victims of homelessness and housing instability. We believe that maximizing opportunities for growth and learning for young children will contribute to their success in school and in life. We aim to nurture the full potential of every child. Our Parents as Teachers program provides home visiting services to parents with low income, housing insecurity, and children younger than age 5. This research-based program promotes kindergarten readiness and prevents child abuse and neglect. During the last year, in response to learning loss caused by the pandemic, SOS began the Ypsilanti Parent Network to serve school-aged children with enrichment programs while helping their parents move forward with education and employment goals. This 2-generation program was opened in response to parent requests for opportunities to grow their own learning so that they could better support their children with their schoolwork during the pandemic. SOS has recently been selected by the state of Michigan to serve as a pilot project site for a family resource center. The Family Resource Center is a national model that offers families parenting programs and helps with food, utilities, and other basic needs in a community setting. This model works well with the programs that SOS has offered for a very long time. As mentioned before, Washtenaw County's shelter wait list is now longer than it has ever been, with more than 100 families waiting for shelter.
Were you planning to join too, Trudy? I can always.
No.
Oh, okay.
Families waiting for shelter often live in their cars, in tents, or in other places not meant for human habitation. Before the pandemic, SOS offered 3 units of family shelter. We operate now 5 units after the Salvation Army had to close its own shelter in Washtenaw County. Now, because of the surge in need, we are increasing to 7 units of shelter this fall. SOS shelters families by master leasing single-family homes in Ypsilanti. SOS's shelters are especially helpful for larger families and multi-generational families. In shelter, SOS is the leaseholder, not the parent. Families can stay in shelter for up to 90 days, and while in shelter, SOS caseworkers help families find an apartment of their own, connect to community resources, and ensure that children are enrolled in school. Rapid rehousing is a national best practice model for ending homelessness for families. Most families in SOS shelter move to our rapid rehousing program. Rapid rehousing is different from shelter because the parent holds their own lease. They get rental assistance for usually about 12 months until they're ready to take over paying their whole lease themselves. They get case management help from SOS to help them develop income to pay for that housing. Last year, SOS's rapid rehousing program served 78 families with 91 adults and 194 children. Of these families, 77% exited to permanent housing. Our rapid rehousing program is funded by HUD, or the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, which requires a 25% match in dollars. We are gearing up for a fundraising campaign this fall to raise funds locally to meet the HUD match requirements. You know, the best way to end homelessness is to prevent it in the first place. SOS has a program to prevent eviction for Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher holders. The Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher is a permanent, long-term housing subsidy to help make a person's apartment more affordable to them. Many people stay on wait lists a long time to get a Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher. Once they have a voucher, they have to find a landlord willing to lease to them. Then they will have to pay 30% of their own income toward the rent each month. The voucher pays the rest. If a family gets behind on their portion of the rent because they missed work due to illness or had another setback, they can lose their voucher and are at risk for homelessness. Once a voucher is lost, it is unlikely the person will get another voucher because wait lists can be long. Before SOS started their program in 2016, the Ann Arbor Housing Commission
Rhonda, I'm sorry, you're muted.
Sorry, I don't know why that keeps happening. Did you hear about the Ann Arbor Housing Commission? I don't know how long I've been muted.
You had just said the Ann Arbor Housing Commission and then it cut off.
Oh, thank you. So before SOS started our program in 2016, Ann Arbor Housing Commission reported that 120 vouchers were being lost each year for mostly preventable reasons. Now SOS is able to prevent most of these voucher losses and keep people in their homes. This program shuts the front door to homelessness by keeping people housed. And we're helping currently about 180 households each year to avoid eviction, keep their vouchers, and avoid homelessness. We have like a 90% success rate in that program. It's a great program. Diversion is also a wonderful way to help people avoid homelessness. Recently, SOS was awarded a $500,000 shelter diversion grant from the Michigan State Housing Development Authority to be spent over 2 years. These funds will be used to hire case managers to work with the families on the shelter wait list to find out if housing options can be identified for them quickly rather than waiting months for a shelter space to open up. The funds will provide for limited amounts of financial assistance to help prevent eviction, pay down utility arrearages, or pay move-in costs if they will help a family move off the shelter wait list quickly. Shelter diversion will reduce the number of families on the shelter wait list and prioritize families with the highest acuity for the limited number of shelter units available in Washtenaw County. Shelter diversion will prevent and end homelessness. So what will happen next? Well, with inflation and funding cuts for emergency food and rental assistance, The need for food and utility support as well as other essentials is expected to grow. The homeless response system in Washtenaw County has been strained due to labor shortages and funding cuts. This January, SOS hired 3 new staff to help with family shelter assessments and eviction prevention assessments for households who are facing housing insecurity. This has helped our community respond to the surge in need for emergency housing that we have seen in recent months. Calls to housing access of Washtenaw County are now answered usually within a few minutes. Assessments for shelter are now completed within a few days. However, with the surge in people who need emergency shelter, it is imperative to add more housing options for them through rapid rehousing and other types of permanent affordable housing. It is also critical that our community identifies sources of flexible funding that can be used to assist people to avoid evictions. It is much more cost-effective to prevent evictions than to serve households once they become homeless. What will help and what will it take to put an end to this housing crisis? Well, as a community, we can address this problem of homelessness by investing into every step of the homeless response system. We need prevention. As I mentioned, SOS offers prevention help for Section 8 housing choice voucher holders who face eviction and homelessness. We provide eviction prevention assessments for other renters too. Barrier Busters has been a good source of flexible funding and support for them in the past, and hopefully will be again. We need diversion. As I mentioned, SOS will be providing diversion services to try to find housing quickly for as many families on the shelter wait list as possible. We need shelter for families who have such complex circumstances that prevention and diversion did not work for them. SOS is now part of providing family shelter assessments in addition to being a shelter provider. We need rapid rehousing so families can leave homelessness behind and move into permanent affordable housing. And of course, we need more affordable housing. Everybody has to have somewhere to live. If we don't plan for affordable housing, then we get unplanned affordable housing in the form of tent camps and other solutions that do not serve our most vulnerable neighbors with dignity. Everyone here can advocate for and support affordable housing development everywhere in our community. Here's how you can help. Even with all these challenges in front of us, you can help people who are facing homelessness and hunger in our community. First of all, please spread the word that people who need help can contact SOS. Please also spread the word that we urgently need volunteers who are interested in ending hunger within our community. Please support initiatives for affordable housing development whenever you can. You can sign up for our e-news and follow SOS on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter to stay up to date about local needs and how you can lend a hand to help. We want to stay in tune with the local needs and respond quickly when new needs emerge. If you see a need and you think SOS can help, please let me know. My contact information will be on the last slide. Here's also how you can help. As we move into the colder months, SOS is launching an effort to end homelessness one day at a time. It only costs $15 to house a homeless child or mother for one day. And if you donate one day, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development will donate 4 more days. You can make a gift to end homelessness through rapid rehousing. If you remember, I said earlier that we have to raise 25% of the funding for rapid rehousing locally in order to secure federal funds to house homeless families. Your donation will make sure that we don't send any money that we need here in Washtenaw County back to Washington, D.C. You can ask your friends to help you end homelessness one day at a time. It's easy. You can make your own fundraising page and then share to social media and through email. You can let people know why you think it's important to make sure every child has a place to call home. Barbara will put links in the chat, and I believe she already is. And if you want to know more about this opportunity, you can also email Barbara directly with any questions. Please note my email address. Feel free to reach out to me anytime if you have questions or ideas for how SOS can help an individual or our community in general. And thank you so much for joining us today. I'm honored that you're willing to take the time to join us, and I would like to take the rest of our time and answer as many of your questions as I can now.
Then I get this is okay. So you consented. And you all are renting. Under duress. Well, why do you feel like you were under duress? I don't think.
Did
We still
anybody
need a
have
couple
any
people to
questions?
mute. Oh, sorry. We still need a couple people to mute because there's conversation or TV coming through. If people could do that.
So
Rhonda, I had a question about funding.
Yeah.
Given that Sarah has gone away at this point, are there other funding sources that you see in addition to private donations on the horizon for us?
For SOS or the community in general?
Well, either, I guess, in terms of homelessness.
Well, the sources that we have traditionally used before Sarah came into our community were the Barrier Busters funds. And these are flexible funds that come very often through the county. And they've been used to help people avoid evictions for a number of years. Unfortunately, we're running low on those funds. In fact, we don't have any right now and anticipate that we won't have any until October. So that's kind of put a halt to many of the housing processes that are happening. We use those funds when, for instance, we have somebody on our HCV program who needs some move-in money, first month's rent, security deposit, stuff like that. And because there are no flexible funds in the community right now, those cases are just kind of stacking up and waiting for a funding source to become available so that we can help people avoid those evictions. The danger with the HCV cases is that they only have so much time to lease up or to resolve their issue. And so if the time exceeds that, then they're going to lose that voucher.
So really there's more constraints currently and in the future than there are expansions of funding that you see.
In terms of flexible funding, yeah.
Yes. Okay, thanks.
Which is what's needed to prevent those evictions.
Thank you.
Angela, yeah, we can share these slides with you so that you can share them with coworkers. That would be fine.
Rhonda, there are hands raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Sanders.
So I'm actually attending this meeting on behalf of EMU, but I think I have a couple of questions. One is I'm interested in knowing whether or not the nonprofits operating in the county that handle or touch housing in any way, do you all work with each other? Do you meet? Do you share information? Do you okay, so I got a couple. So that's one. I'll go back to it if you.
Yeah, I can share, but I'm in like probably on average 5 to 7 meetings every week that are in collaborations with other housing providers.
Okay. And then you mentioned the increase in rent. It's actually quite astronomical.
Yeah.
And so my question would be, with this reality that people are being evicted because they're having to leave their housing because it sometimes is going up a third or 50% or double. How is that going to be addressed, even with any funding that may be provided to housing nonprofits? Because you can't go out and build the housing.
Right.
And I think my last question for you is related to Barrier Busters. Have you ever provided presentations to and made direct asks of the municipalities that tend to be the major users of Barrier Busters? So I'm asking specifically, has SOS ever had a specific conversation with Superior Township or Ypsi Township or Pittsfield, and to sort of let them know how important it is that they also participate in the funding sources that go into barrier busters and then come to you to support the residents? That was a lot. I'm sorry.
That was a lot. I think we did the first one.
Yep.
Did we answer that one? And the second one, if you'll remind me, was
What was the second one? Oh, the cost of rent. So how do you, I've had personal experience with that. The last place I lived, the rent went up $600 with no improvements, no nothing, just $600. And that's a place where everybody's working. No, that's no disrespect to people that may be disabled or whatever, but you know, they've got the income, but not $600 or $700. So what happens to the most vulnerable residents? If we're not addressing that, how is putting money into, where are you going to put the people?
Yeah, and our approach has been to work with individual landlords. When we rent our master lease, our shelter units, we work with the individual landlords and talk about the programs. And when we're on the client side and we're helping that client find an affordable unit, we also work with the landlord. If that unit is just out of fair market rent range, or if it's slightly more than the particular client can afford, then we work with that client and landlord to try and find a reasonable agreement where they both can get their needs met. So unfortunately, you know, there's not rent control or other avenues for dealing with that sort of thing within our community. We have to deal on an individual basis with each particular landlord and try and advocate on behalf of the clients that we serve. And then I know you had a third. Working with the particular townships, we are developing relationships with the particular townships, and we also serve as part of the Washtenaw Housing Alliance, which also makes those efforts with particular townships to try and advocate for some of their funding to come to support the efforts of the housing community. Thank you all. Very good questions.
Thank you.
Hey, Lynn, Lynn Song, I think, had her hand up next.
Yeah.
Hi. So maybe this also helps with Commissioner Sandra's questions. I know with the new Human Services Partnership Committee that we have, it's a joint work group between the city and the county. We've actually tried to pursue additional funding from townships and other municipalities to contribute to what used to be coordinated funding. And they've told at least our city administrator, and I think County Administrator Greg Dale said that the municipalities have said no, they're not obligated. They don't feel obligated to contribute to that. So, I mean, that's really unfortunate. So for folks who live in these areas, I would encourage you to reach out to your township trustees and ask if, you know, housing seniors and housing our most vulnerable community members is something that they can look at when they look at their general budget. Ann Arbor is the only municipality that contributes our general funding budget every year to this effort. We also did, a couple of us, you know, myself pushed really hard to rebudget. We had a budget amendment in March for over $380,000 for that, to assist with those 100 families in the hotels who are being evicted. In advance of being evicted from the hotels on April 1st. That money was turned around by the city of Ann Arbor through our housing commission that was spent in 4 days. 4 days to help families and their children who attend our public schools be able to find other housing alternatives or pay back rent, a number of services. The majority were Black single mothers. Majority received about $1,000 or less to be able to find some housing security. So I just want to emphasize that there are efforts being made, but it's unfortunate that every 6 months we have the same conversation for the past couple of years now that federal funding and federal work to help keep folks housed has changed. And we're just not paying attention locally as much as we should be. And I should also note that agencies have not returned to pre-pandemic fundraising levels. People are not giving as much as they have pre-pandemic. So agencies are truly struggling. They're trying to find funding. Townships, meanwhile, have had additional revenue from development projects, all the housing that have come up in the townships. That's general fund revenue that could be used towards this effort. So, I joined Rhonda in encouraging folks to reach out to local electeds, but I can assure you, at least on Ann Arbor City Council, we've been following this really, really closely, following how agencies have been funded, who's been funding them, how much has been provided, but also worry in advance of the fall, where we're going to be looking at cold weather shelters opening up again. And churches cannot sustain this work. Churches are sustaining damage from folks now that we've got more folks coming in for warming shelters. When you have to pay for additional upkeep and infrastructure in your religious building to do this work without accessing public dollars, there's a lot going on here where we're relying on private nonprofits and religious institutions to do this work with not enough public dollars. So besides the townships and cities, there's also the state. So we can also lean on our state reps to look at this too. But thank you, Rhonda. And I'm sorry. I feel like I need to apologize to service providers. The monies that are granted after your fiscal year has started, and it's granted in a way where it's difficult for you to budget for hiring. We give you money where in 6-month spots where you can't really hire half a person to do this work. And we're competing against nonprofit folks who are leaving the sector when they can very well work for the university. They can work for the hospital. They can work for other universities with better benefits. So truly this work is thankless, but I thank you. And I'm sorry, it's not improving.
Thank you, Lynn, for all your efforts on Ann Arbor City Council, and we appreciate all that the city has done to support human services. Kathy?
So I too would like to thank all the housing providers, particularly the folks who are doing the boots on the ground, answering the calls. It is very, very difficult work to do when you don't have adequate funding, when you don't have enough staff. And I wanted to thank also Ann Arbor City Council. Well, Ann Arbor City, they passed a housing millage and the council has really, really stepped up. But, I think I can't help myself. I have to say the fundamental problem here is there is not enough units of affordable housing. That's, I'm a analytical person. I look at root causes. That is the root cause. For those folks who are upset about the rents jumping, supply and demand. The landlords can raise the rents because there's not enough affordable housing. And until we really, really face that and do something about it, we're going to be putting people in hotels because in the winter, which is the least cost efficient in terms of money, but also not very good for families. They belong in some sort of home, not in a hotel, which is, as a community, as a county, we need to recognize that this is going to be ongoing. We're going to have families on lists. We're going to have, last year, I directly interacted with 4 families with children living in vans, not big, comfortable vans, but packed in vans. They're not learning, they're not getting an education. They're not getting adequate food. This is, it touches so many areas. We have to have more housing units that are affordable. And I was at a forum with the state and with Debbie Dingle and 2 of our state reps, and they were saying we need to all work together. We really do. And I love forums. They're educational, community can come out, but they don't mean much if we don't follow up with do. And that goes for the county, that goes for the townships. And we everybody on this Zoom, everybody out there who's frustrated by this, who doesn't want to see a family freeze to death, like happened in Kalamazoo, two children and a mom, or end up sooner or later, something tragic is going to happen. Those families living in a bus, all it would take is a bad snowstorm and the snow piling up behind that exhaust pipe. The reality is we can demand from our elected representatives, our townships, supervisors and boards, our county and our state and our federal government, that they do something about this, because root cause, not enough affordable units. And there are things being done around the country, and we need to tap into that and do it. So anyway, thank you. I just had to get it off my chest because I'm really, really, really worried that we're going to have a tragedy on our hands here in Washington County if we don't do something. So thank you all.
Thank you, Kathy, for all that you do for our community. Denise?
Hi, I just wanted to define or explain the difference between affordable housing and what we need is low income housing. Affordable housing, most of us on this Zoom meeting could probably be accepted in affordable housing. Our families that work make anywhere from $12 to maybe $15, $16 at the most. You can't live in Washtenaw County with children. Most of our families have anywhere from 3 to 4 children. That's the average size of the families that we are serving now. They don't qualify for affordable housing because their income is not even within that guideline. They need low income housing. That's where our families are falling. If you have affordable housing, that's not going to solve the problem in our county. We need the low income housing for the families that we serve. So I just wanted to explain the difference between affordable housing and what kind of housing we're looking for because of the salaries that our families come up with on a yearly basis. They can't sustain that because they don't qualify because of the AMI or whatever the qualifications are for living in affordable housing. So we need to understand that when we're talking about what kind of housing we are asking for in our county. So I just wanted to define that for people.
Thank you, Denise. That's a wonderful point. And Denise is from one of our wonderful partner agencies, IHN and Alpha House, where she oversees the housing department there. Thank you. Andy, Commissioner Labar.
Thanks, Rhonda. I appreciate you laying out the information here. I think in a nutshell, since the dissolution of coordinated funding, the county and the city have tried through the new Human Services Partnership to fund things in, I think, a way that is designed to be more impactful on outcomes downstream. And I think that is good for many reasons. But 3 years in, I think what we also need to do is set up a parallel structure of roughly the same capacity dollar-wise that we had provided to coordinated funding. The county's contribution was $1.25 million, something in that range, that is more passive and responsive to the ongoing needs that we see in the community as it relates to human services and the sorts of services that SOS provides. I know we are all trying to do more with less and do things in more impactful ways using data and looking at what metrics we can affect. but I come to the conclusion some of this is simply just the ongoing blocking and tackling of government. And so I hope folks on this call will share those sorts of sentiments with your electeds. I would echo Commissioner Sanders and Councilwoman Song's points about the municipalities, though I believe they will continue to say, in essence, we don't have the legal obligation. So anything we do is sort of above and beyond, and we've got our own issues to deal with. I think you should lean on the county. I think you should lean on the state and the feds. But I could use personally more advocacy that speaks to the ongoing nature of these services and that speaks to the reality that even if we do it the best possible way, it's one of those challenges I think that will never leave us and that will always be sort of something where we want to change outcomes, we want to address root causes, but sadly, we're also going to have to address conditions as they exist. That's my 2 cents. Rhonda, I appreciate the work you do and the relationship you've got with everybody on this board or on this call, and we'll continue to try and be helpful in my capacities.
Thank you so much, Andy. We appreciate all your efforts.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes, Charles.
Yeah, if I wanted to give some money to SOS and I didn't want to mail it, but just take it there, what's the address that I would take it to? Is it 101?
Yes, 101 South Huron Street in Ypsilanti.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Barbara just put that email or that address in the chat as well. Are there other questions or comments? If not, I truly appreciate all of your time today and your willingness to come and listen to a very difficult situation that we're facing in our community right now as we head into the winter months. Thank you so much for your support of SOS and the efforts of our community to help address housing and homelessness here in Washtenaw County. If you have any questions, please follow up with us via email or pick up the phone, and happy to talk to you about anything. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.